501.
All right, it's 5:01. We'll call the meeting of the Public Works Committee on today, August 24th, to order. Councilman, can you call the roll?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bruschi. O'Brien. Bergdorf.
Here.
Cleary.
Here.
Fine.
Here.
Hurley.
Here.
Peter.
Here.
Reinhardt.
Here.
And Smith. 6 present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. First order of business under previous business. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting? Motion from Mr. Cleary. Is there a second? From Mr. Bergdorf. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Under current business, first authorizing an agreement with AOW Associates regarding general construction for the Sheriff's 911 EOC facility project at the Clarksville Public Safety Building. Thank you for joining us, Sheriff. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So this was a bid for our general contractor. We received 4 bids. We'd like to recommend AOW Associates, which is $4,799,162. They were the lowest bidder. I'd also, I have if you don't mind, I'll go through all of them.
I have no objection with that. Please go ahead, Sheriff.
And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about the project because I kind of like you to know.
Sure. So that, just for note, that's numbers 2 through 6 the sheriff will be discussing. Go ahead, Sheriff.
The second was for the plumbing contractor, again, 4 bids. This one, our recommendation is Campito Plumbing, $854,613. And then for electrical, we had 8 bids. Our recommendation is DLC Electric, $1,589,000 flat. And as for a mechanical contractor, we had 6 bids come in. Our recommendation is Danforth Mechanical at $1,083,500. Total construction bids equal $8,326,275. All of the bidders are in fact the low bidder. There's a few more things about the project that I'd like to just talk about briefly, just so all the I'd like to have the legislators just have the knowledge of it. We're using 3 streams of funding. We have a $9.2 million bond in place. We have grant funding of which we've already used $500,000. We're covering a lot of our soft costs with that, future furniture, 911 consoles, things of that nature. And we have additional grant funding coming in. And then, of course, budgeted and encumbered monies that we're using. We did come in tight. It came in approximately $800,000 over where we thought, but we're still under. I kind of attribute that to the rise in materials, that everything is hard to get and everything's gone up in cost. But again, we still are $800,000, or we still are under our original allotted amount. Another unplanned for cost was $200,000 for the sewer system. Their initial plans called for tying it into the old system. With the increase of personnel out there, even the health department, we're like, this just can't happen. You got to upgrade the septic. So that's a $200,000 expense. So we are still under our original $9.2 million. It's close, and we have a 7% contingency with that. Again, I have no anticipation whatsoever of coming back here and begging for more money. I think we can still do this efficiently and under budget. It's an 11,832 square foot building. We're expanding dispatch positions. We're doubling call taker positions. It accounts for everything for our EOC and our 911. It'll be a state-of-the-art facility. And as long as we get passage, we anticipate putting a shovel in the ground in about 25, 30 days.
Before we take all these individually, are there any questions from any of the members for the sheriff? Mr. Reinhardt,
Hi,
Mr. Bergdorf, Mr. Fine.
you said the sewer system needed to be upgraded,
Yes, sir.
even though it was a school and all the kids were there?
Yes, well, it was very antiquated. It was the problem. So we actually even had problems coming off with rainwater. That all went in there. And then they had a system where it was chlorinated and then would slowly leach out into a storm drain. But yeah, it was totally antiquated system. It needed a lot of work. And I've got to tell you that the 2 engineers from the county side of things, DPW and DGS, working together, they've been fabulous. They've saved us tens of thousands of dollars. And they're the ones actually who caught this and said, this should be part of this project and do this together. If you're going to upgrade, you're going to upgrade. What the engineer initially was calling for, I don't even think the health department would have approved, and that was to put a tank next to our brand new building and have it emptied once a month until the sewer system eventually was upgraded. That's not going to happen. So this will all be done all in one project.
Mr. Verdor?
Yes, Sheriff, you said these were all low bidders.
Yes, sir.
So Hewitt Young, which seemed to have a low base bid, they were disqualified?
Sure, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I see the lines through it, and I just,
Yeah, the reason is they went through their bid, they proved that they made a mathematical error to purchasing, so I didn't even realize it was on any of the forms, because they went through their bid the next day, purchasing and the law department asked them to show proof, they showed adequate proof, so they allowed them to withdraw the bid.
thank you very much. Great explanation. Happens all the time.
Mr. Fine?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, a couple of things. One, you may have touched on this at some point, but I remember the original plan was to put the 911 center in a nursing home.
Right.
What's the reason that we switched to doing it?
Basically cost. That project was going to be about anywhere on a low end of 13.5 million, upwards to 15 to 16 million, mainly because they wanted it to match the new nursing home. And in order to do that, we would have had to do some special metal, special windows, special brick. So the cost basically was just driving it too high. So when we fell back and looked at moving it to Clarksville, which I was not a fan of initially because I really thought it was going to be too much money because you're in a rural area. I thought we would need more fiber, things like that, microwave. The cost of that technology has come down, whereas the cost of building materials has skyrocketed.
Okay. So are we going to get just as good of a facility?
We're getting basically just a brown wrapper. I don't need all the frills. I don't need to be in the middle of the town of Colony with a beautiful looking building. I'm nestled away out in the hill towns. We're going to have an 11,000 square foot building. Just basically, it's a big box with all the technology that we need to have probably the most efficient and technologically advanced 911 in the state upon its completion. Very comfortable with that statement.
Great. Also, are there MWD goals on this project?
I don't know. I know we have a project labor agreement in place, so I got to assume that's all part of that package. And then I'd have to research it from that point on.
Okay.
I can check on it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Purley?
Sheriff, I represent Altamont.
Yes.
We've been happy in our neighborhood to see increased presence with the canine training at, I think your office.
Up at La Salette?
At La Salette and also at the former Cobb School.
Mhm.
Is that going to continue there, or is that going to be consolidated in Clarksville, or what's?
No, they actually, sir, they move all over the place, wherever we can get access to a building, especially something more commercialized, so there's multiple rooms, they can do building searches, they can simulate domestics, things of that nature. They'll move around, but that's been a great building to continue to utilize. I know that I think they do some boys basketball or something like that in the gymnasium, but the rest of it, I think, is going to be there for a while. So yes, it'll continue.
Good, thank you.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Fine's question regarding MWBE goals. What's the total cost of the project?
9.2 million.
So I would imagine that must be the threshold from which there should be some goals, and maybe some other finance department or something, maybe we share what those goals are, and I would be interested in, as you move along with the project, how you're going to meet those goals.
Sure.
That will be identified.
Sure. You check on that, Lee.
Sheriff, quick question. You say there's a project labor agreement in place. Does that have to, as a question for council, doesn't that have to be authorized by the legislature?
Typically, yes. I don't know, I just don't know offhand what this agreement you would be referring to. I can certainly follow up and let you know,
Yeah.
because if there is one in place, it would typically be.
Sheriff, I believe this started with the nursing home project. It was the same person, Sealer, is the person that did the background for it. And it was actually paid for ahead of time when we were doing the nursing home project and carried over to this project.
So you think it's the same project labor agreement and it's
It's not the same
transferable?
Project labor agreement was redone, but we paid the consultant
Right.
to do the PLA.
17,000.
Yeah, right, $17,000, which never really got done. So we just carried it over and said, okay, now actually do it.
Well, council's going to look into it to see if, even if it was done, if it's allowed to be accepted or not, and they'll report back. Any other questions from the membership on the general project? If not, sorry, Mr.
One
Fine?
more. Sheriff, is this new facility big enough for?
Yes.
The city of Albany to move in
Yes.
if that happens?
Yes.
Okay.
So this facility will take 17 dispatchers at any one given time, 40 call takers. It also has, right attached to it is the EOC, so everybody will be together, but we built this so we could do a regional dispatch, God forbid something horrific happened. And I firmly believe, and I've said this for years, that eventually most of these towns in Albany County will not be able to afford to have their own dispatch. And I firmly believe that, and I don't want to consolidate. Take that word right out of the vocabulary. I want to share our building. I want other towns to come over and use our building. I want the city of Albany to come and use it. I don't really want the city of Albany's employees working for us. They can work in that building. Everybody will be able to operate and function within it. And then, God forbid, if there's a horrific fire in Albany and they need help, we can just slide a couple chairs over here and help them. And likewise, if we're working a homicide, they can slide over and help us. Everybody can work together in there and function as one large dispatch. And then, you know what, if somebody chooses to consolidate down the road, they do it. But in the meantime, we'll have a facility that everybody can function out of. God forbid, again, something catastrophic happens and they need a building. That's the building.
Okay.
Mr. Brodeur?
Mr. Chairman, if there are no further questions, would we want to consider merging 2, 3, 4, and 5? The 3?
I would accept a motion for that if that is the wish.
So moved.
All right, so I have a motion to group from Mr. Bergdorf, second by Mr. Cleary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now on that group motion, is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Bergdorf, second. Mr. Reinhardt, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you, Sheriff.
I have one more.
Fine. Number 6, authorizing an agreement with Peter Luisi and Brothers, contracting and for resurfacing of the main lot, booking lot, and main runway of the Albany County Correctional Facility. Sheriff?
All right, so this is a request for a $104,950 expenditure to do all of our entranceways and lots. Luisi Brothers were the cheapest bidder on that. Several people did bid. I think there were 8 bidders that came in. They were the cheapest by far. Lots, although the memo says 40 years old, that's physically impossible, but they are 25 to 30 years old.
Any questions for the sheriff? If not, I would entertain a motion.
And this was budgeted money, sorry.
I'll make a motion.
Motion for Mr. Cleary, second for Mr. Bergdorf. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Now I think I can thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you all. Good to see you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
I'll check on that, Sam, and we'll get back to you.
Next up, I believe we have Mr. Claudio coming up to discuss an agreement, and it is authorizing an agreement with Direct Energy Business LLC regarding the supply of electricity to various county facilities.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Energy Advisory Group, we are requesting a contract authorization with Direct Energy for the supply of electricity to various county facilities, which includes 16 county accounts. This would be for a 3-year contract with the option for 2 one-year extensions. In addition, we are requesting authorization to enter into a community solar agreement for several accounts, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. The contract itself, the county issued an RFP for a managed load following block and index product. That product basically allows us to continue to index our electric, so we follow day-ahead market for our electric rates, meaning that the rates vary day to day. This product allows us the flexibility to then fix rates over the course of the contract term, so say, 6 months into the contract, we feel costs are escalating, we can then lock in a certain percentage of our electric for fixed months that we decide. The benefit too is it's also managed, so that we'll be having periodic meetings with Direct Energy. That'll be following our accounts and then making recommendations as to kind of what we should do in terms of some of those changes. In terms of the bids, we received 2 bids. The first from Direct Energy, and the second was Constellation. The way this bid was structured, it was really for the fixed adder price on the index product. Direct Energy number came in slightly higher than Constellation, but through the bid, Direct Energy offered us a value add of offering us a community solar option. So when we went through and did the review on the bids themselves, we took into consideration the savings of the community solar. That program would allow us to save 10% on the distribution of our electric through National Grid. So in kind of taking that into account, we felt that Direct Energy provided us the better value overall, just because of that cost savings associated with the community solar. That's also in keeping with the county's initiatives to pursue renewable energy. The county is already in the process of looking at a power purchase agreement for solar over by the airport, through the county exec's office and through, members of the legislature. So we are kind of working through that project with the community solar because of how the credits are structured. So in kind of making sure we have adequate demand for both projects, we are looking for community solar to be applied to 3 of the accounts. Those would be the North Plant, South Plant, and then the correctional facility. Those will be allocated to the community solar agreement, and then the rest of the accounts would be available for the PPA project if that goes forward. We do have the ability to roll additional accounts into the community solar at a later date if needed. I guess in terms of the savings itself, we looked at those 3 accounts, as I mentioned. The estimated annual savings for the community solar based on those 3 accounts, and that's again 10% savings on the distribution side, would equate to just under $43,000. It was $42,968. And again, if you look at the comparative to Constellation, that was a net savings of $11,793 as doing a comparative to Constellation. So that's why we ultimately are recommending Direct Energy for the supply. The community solar would be a secondary agreement to the main supply contract, and we plan on structuring that with an initial 5-year term with 4 additional years at 5 years, so that the total contract term would be potentially up to 25 years if you were to execute all the renewable terms. So.
Any questions from the members of the committee? Mr. Renner.
Not so much a question, I just want to share with the committee that I was on the phone with a bunch of people about this earlier. My only question, it's not a concern, I think Direct Energy is the way to go. I like having the 3 big accounts go to community solar, but I think there might be an opportunity to save even more by having more accounts go to community solar right away, as Direct Energy suggested. The issue is we don't want to put at risk the power purchase agreement for the radar site. And so what we need to do is figure, and I've asked that this be done, that we make sure that there is going to be an easy on-ramp and off-ramp for any of these other facilities that we put into the community solar portfolio, so that when, and we don't know when it is, the power purchase agreement facility is built and available, we would switch our facilities that needed to be switched over to that. In other words, we don't want to risk the power purchase agreement, but I do want to get as much savings as possible by putting as many facilities as we can into the community solar in the short run. We don't know when the other facility is going to be built, the radar site. So we're basically banking the savings now from having as many facilities as possible in the community solar portfolio. It would be greater than the numbers that were just quoted. But it's all, the precondition has to be that we can get on and off this account for the community solar quickly and not risk what Siemens and NIPA are looking at to doing at the radar site. So, in other words, if we can do it, let's do it. If we can't, if we find that there are constraints in terms of how we can easily sign up for community solar at these other facilities beyond the three, then we don't do it. But I think we should at least ask the questions and find out if there are more savings available, right away. Did I
Yeah.
summarize?
Yeah, so Luke Rogers is basically spearheading the PPA project for the county exec's office, so he's on vacation. So I'll certainly talk to him when he's back, so we can kind of have those discussions really with NIPA and Siemens to make sure that we put ourselves in the best position to really kind of secure both projects. Like I said, I think if there's opportunity to get the savings now, we should take that as well, so I
I'd
agree.
be happy to talk to anyone on the committee if you want further about what I see as a very positive, open market for community solar, where it's going to be more demand than there is supply. I think we should take advantage of what we can while it's available. And the power purchase agreement will also, I think, benefit from the drive towards renewables, in terms of whatever, ultimate deal we end up with.
Any other questions? Mr. Berger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had an opportunity to speak with Angelo earlier today and ask a number of questions, and I'm gratified to hear that Bill thinks that this is the way to go as well, and I'm encouraged by your desire to add on other projects as long as there isn't an adverse impact. I was just sort of curious. The one thing we didn't talk about is the rate that we're getting. How does that compare with the rate that we are paying now in terms of, for the first year? Are we saving money? Are we losing money? Is the trend in electricity up and we're?
For the fixed adder, it's actually lower. So our current rate, it's a little bit different because when we did the previous contract, they gave us different rates for each grouping of accounts. In this case, when they did it, they just gave us, they averaged out all the accounts. So with that, I think I had basically a cent, just over a cent. So if you look at it, it was 0.0101 is the current fixed adder. And with direct energy for the next 3 years, the amount would be 0.00894. So we are actually paying less just in the fixed adder, regardless of the community solar. So that's just with the fixed adder. And again, we would expect to see another 10% reduction in the distribution charges for National Grid going forward if we go forward to the community solar. So we're actually paying less. We're going to be paying less than we currently are.
So the fixed adder is 0.00894?
Yes, that's cents. Yep.
Oh, I'm just looking at Karen Storm's letter, and there's obviously a typo there, because it says the fixed adder for all accounts is 0.894.
It might be how they do the dollars and the cents. I think it's just a conversion on the dollars to cents. So I
Okay.
think that's how that is. So it's actually less than a penny.
Okay.
So
But it's a slight savings.
there would be a savings on the adder, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I didn't
So-
do the arithmetic to see kind of what the comparative would be on the usage, but I could certainly give that to you.
Okay. And as we also talked about, this is sort of a floating rate day by day?
The fixed adder is exactly that, it's fixed, but what we do is we actually track the day-ahead market, so that's basically changing daily.
Yeah.
And that's really just going to be what the market is going to produce, either based on the amount of consumption that particular day. So that's the thing that's going to change. So that's, currently, and this has been true of the county probably for the last 15 years, we've indexed our electric usage, which has actually benefited us because rates have, especially over the last 10 years, they either been flat or declined to some degree. So by having an index, we're actually taking advantage of those savings. Again, I think the concern is if we start to see that trend reverse, where you're starting to see that cost escalate, this product allows us to fix the actual electric rate, which again provides us some protection for additional escalation. So we think it's a good product just because it kind of affords us the benefit of both sides.
Yeah, you have an upward hedge.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, great.
if you look in your packets, you'll see a chart that shows how in 2018, it was the only year where the rates actually went up. It's been a downward trend since. The point that was made by Direct Energy was that that was the only year in recent years where it would have been good to fix an indexed price going forward that would have been based on the previous year. So in that year, it would have been beneficial, but in every other year, it isn't. So it hasn't been. The question I wanted to ask is, so, and I like this feature, that if the experts at Direct say, you know what, natural gas prices are going up, you know, we see what's going on with fuel prices, your rates are gonna probably go up now. We're gonna have high inflation, whatever the reasons. So we can fix a rate then.
We can fix anywhere from 0 to 100% of the contract amount, so it's up to us, and we can also even get as detailed as fixing certain months. So if you're gonna follow the kind of the normal cycle for energy costs, generally in the winter they're higher, in the summer they're higher, on the electric side anyway, so we could also just fix certain months of the year if we chose to.
Right.
So-
And do we have any kind of a protection if we were to go that route? Like if we do say, okay, let's fix it, all the buildings, 12 months of the year, do they have any sort of a guarantee about essentially the validity of their projections? Do they protect
There's no,
us in
there's no,
any way,
like,
or
yeah, there's no
totally
walk,
risk on us?
yeah, there's no walk back clause. So once we basically lock it in, you're locked in. So if for some reason, you know, say it, for whatever reason, tomorrow it goes up by 20%, we lock it in just because we're concerned about it going to 40%. And then if it drops the next, you know, the day after, then we're locked in at that fixed rate. So we really don't have a way to walk it back. So that's gonna be the thing we'll have to take a close look at.
Yeah. Okay.
So we are gradually getting into the social services time frame on this, so if there's no other questions, is there anyone who would recommend a motion for this? Mr. Cleary, followed by Mr. Reinhardt as the second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 8, with Dave Riley.
It's not me.
Oh, you're next. This is the one for IT.
Okay, authorizing an agreement with Core BTS regarding the purchase of Cisco Collaboration Flex software. Mr. Riley?
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mr. Blanchard couldn't make it this evening, so I said I'd jump in for him. This is the software that runs our IP phone system for the county. It's a 3-year contract, $79,000 a year for a total of $237,000. They were the lowest responsive bidder. Purchasing's concurred with it, and it interfaces with all of our existing equipment.
Any questions for Mr. Riley? Mr. Bergdorf?
Just out of curiosity, I mean, Cisco is Cisco. Are they part of a state contract, or do we actually go out and bid them separately?
I believe we bid it, but let me get back to you on that.
Okay. I'm
Just
just
because-
surprised that a major player like that wouldn't have, a licensing fee on a cooperative purchase agreement.
Yeah, the paperwork that was in there implied that directly said they were the lowest responsive bidder.
Okay.
So it leads me to believe it was bid, but let me double check for you.
Okay, either way.
Mr. Bergdorf?
If there are no other questions, I would move it.
Motion for Mr. Bergdorf, second. Mr. Reinhardt, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 8 passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are now going to Commissioner Raimondo, and it's authorizing an agreement with Tiger Corporation regarding the purchase of 5 tractor mowers and amending the 2021 Department of Public Works budget. Welcome, Commissioner.
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, this is for the purchase of 5 tractors with side flail mowers. They're going to replace 5 of our existing mowers that are from 2008. These mowers are used to mow alongside the shoulders along all of our county roadways. This is 100% funded by state monies through CHIPS Extreme Winter Recovery.
Mr. Reinhardt?
Are these mulching mowers?
No.
Is there a way to have side mowers that are mulching mowers?
I can certainly look into that.
The reason I ask is that if they are mulching mowers, you don't have to go back a second time to pick up the grass, so you're saving on fuel for that second run. maybe it doesn't matter on the shoulders.
I don't believe we're picking up the grass.
Well, okay,
So,
yeah, I don't
yeah.
know. But I mean, for certain applications, like on playing fields, whatever,
Mhm.
if you don't have to go back a second time, you actually save a lot of money.
Point taken. Thank you.
Any other questions for the commissioner?
Make a
Clear.
motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Cleary, is there a second? Mr. Bergdorf, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Commissioner, we have you for number 10 and 11 as well.
Yeah.
Number 10, authorizing an agreement with Tracy Road Equipment, Inc. regarding the purchase of a lowboy trailer. Commissioner.
Hi, yes, this is a lowboy trailer that's going to replace our existing 2005 trailer. It is also funded 100% with state funding, CHIPS Extreme Winter Recovery funding.
Any questions for the commissioner on number 10?
What is CHIPS Extreme Winter?
That is state funding that we receive on a yearly basis. There's three pieces of it. There's CHIPS monies that we use mostly for paving our roadways. There's Pave New York monies, which we also use for paving roadways. And then there's a third category called Extreme Winter Recovery. And with that pot of money, we're able to purchase equipment.
Any other questions in regards to number 10, the purchase of the lowboy trailer?
Make a motion.
Motion from Mr. Clear, is there a second? Mr. Reinhardt, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Number 11, authorizing supplemental agreement number 2 with the New York State Department of Transportation regarding the CR9 Brat Hollow Road over the Fox Creek Bridge construction project. Commissioner?
Yes, this project has been fully constructed. It was a federal aid project. The original bridge replacement project was federally funded, 80% federal monies. Once the bridge was complete, it was apparent that there was a settlement issue on one of the approaches. We then had to do extra work that was not included in the original funding. Now we're going back and asking the state for 80% of reimbursement for the work. This agreement will allow the state to reimburse us.
Any questions for the commissioner? If none, I would entertain a motion from Mr. Reinhardt. Is there a second? Mr. Bergdorf, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. 12 was withdrawn, and that concludes our active business for today. If there are no other questions from the membership, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion, Mr. Cleary, second from Mr. Fine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.